Ty Hudson's here to talk Arkansas football. Catch him on hogville.net, also hogville.net right here on YouTube. Please like the video, folks. It's easy to do. Like the video, share the videos out on social media, subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. So that leads right into Texas A&M. And if somebody can't throw the ball, it's Texas A&M. Now, they won a big game for them against Miami, a decent team, good team. We'll see how it fares for the Hurricanes going down the line, but a pretty sloppy 17-9 conservative game plan for Jimbo Fisher. So if Max Johnson and company, and it actually, I watched the game, most of the game, I wouldn't put this one on Max Johnson. I'd put it on pass protection and just being conservative. So it wasn't like Max Johnson played a poor game, but if Texas A&M is going to throw it against somebody, I guess this is going to be the team because they haven't been able to do it yet.
Yeah, I actually wrote those very words in my pick'ems. Otis Kirk, well, it's been Dudley because Otis Kirk's been out, but Otis Kirk does a pick'ems, sheet every week, and he'll post what we say about each game. That's exactly what I said about Max. Said he's not looked stellar in the limited amount that we've seen him. It's hard to put it on him, but I think he threw for like 53% or something against Miami. Didn't look really great in the passing game, but then again, nobody has. My words, I think almost verbatim were, if there was ever a week that he wanted to look like an All-American, this is it. If I'm Jimbo Fisher, I'm just throw the ball. Just throw the ball. They've got issues, obviously in the secondary, as we've gone over so much, and I've talked about it on Hogville.net YouTube. I've talked about it on Tuss Talk with Ty. I've talked about it in my Discord. Like, the secondary it's more than just a problem. It is like a gaping hole of a problem. I do think as the year carries on, and they're trying to adapt without Slusher and Catalon up until this point, right? And I obviously they've lost those mouthpieces. They don't have Morgan on the field. Morgan, who is a seasoned veteran, who is a leader on that defense. They don't have Morgan on the field this year. I mean, he was really the talking captain. He was the guy. He was calling stuff out. They don't have that. Nothing against Bumper Pool or Drew Sanders. They're just different type of players. They're just guys that go out and make the plays, but they're not the guys, I guess, to call out certain things and to really take a hold of the defense and lead the way Morgan was. And they also lost Fouché and Brooks, a couple safeties, and now they're without Catalon, who was that mouthpiece for the secondary. I think it's very obvious that has got to be priority one for them to fix. And A&M, yeah, they're probably. I mean, look, if you wanted me to bet anything on this game, it would be like, are they capable, or will they throw for 300 plus yards? And I would say probably, yeah. Even though Max Johnson, didn't prove that last week against Miami. By the way, I picked A&M over Miami, and I'm sure a lot of people did, because it's hard to buy into a good quote unquote Miami football team. It's hard to buy into those guys. They're frauds every year. But A&M, who I believe also was a fraud, and I think you and I talked about that for like everybody, everyone I talked to about this. Like, how can you put these guys so high without an accomplished quarterback, someone you feel comfortable in?
They're a different level of fraud than Miami.
They are. You're exactly right. Two different levels of fraud. I agree with that.
They're 100%. On the Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State kind of fraud that we're part of them fraud list.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, having saying all that, they are 23rd in the country right now. A&M is. The line right now, I think, or the spread's at 1.5. The over-under's at 48.5. I think it's going to be a low-scoring, close game. And I think, but if Jimbo watched, I heard him say, if you look at their passing yards, it's in situations where they're trailing. And I'm like, man, did you watch this game against Missouri State? Because that certainly was not the issue. It had nothing to do with Missouri State trailing. They threw, 300. They threw almost I think it was 250 yards in the first half alone, if I remember right. Again, don't quote me on that, but it was a lot. And it was easy. And it was a lot of it too, Mark. It's missed tackles. And that is fixable. This is a team that has guys that are more than capable of being great open field tacklers. Hudson Clark, I think, is one of the best open field tacklers for a corner in the SEC. The guy rarely missed tackles last year and the year before last. This year he's missing tackles. The only guys that aren't missing tackles are the linebackers Drew Sanders and Bumper Pool, but everyone else in the secondary, they're missing one-on-one tackles. I think they had something like 14 missed tackles in their game against Missouri State. They had a few more again, or just a couple less, I think, in the South Carolina game. Missed tackles are the yards after catch racked up against Missouri State. Those are things that are fixable. They've got the experience, they've got the talent. Those are things that are absolutely fixable. Some of it is guys getting burnt in the secondary and the top end. The safety's just getting lost. Not a lot of communication, I think, is what's happening there. But a lot of this is coachable, and I don't think they finish. I obviously don't believe they finished dead last in the country in passing yards. I don't think that's going to happen. I think some of it too is who they've played. We know South Carolina with Spencer Rattler, they're going to hurl the ball around. Bobby Petrino going to hurl the ball around. That's just kind of his MO. So yeah, but I do think you can equate a lot of the passing yards, at least 250, was due to missed tackles. I think is what I read from the Missouri State game. So that's a lot of yardage. That's a lot of yards after catch. There's like 240 yards or something after catch. A lot of those are missed tackles. These are things that are completely fixable, and I think they will improve upon them. I'm not saying it's night and day, where they, as the year goes on, it's just night and day in terms of passing yards given up and missed tackles, but I do think it's something that as they move along, as they get through a game at a time, you'll start to see these numbers come down. And it's also just based on who they play to. A lot of teams like A&M, for example, probably not the most pass happy team you're gonna play. So they're getting I don't want to say they're getting a break in the passing game, but they're not playing an opponent. They're not playing Bobby Petrino this week. I'll just say that against Jimbo. But we know they are capable, especially with how Arkansas secondary's played lately.
A&M threw it 20 times against Miami. They threw it 20 times against App State, and they lost the game. So they were in comeback mode at some point in the game, and they still only threw it 20 times. And I got to tell you, again, Max Johnson, in my eyes, was not the problem against Miami. He was getting lit up. So pass protection might be an issue with Texas A&M. At least it was in that game. And Arkansas may be able to put some serious heat on Max Johnson, and he's not fleet of foot. He can run, he can escape, and he's mobile, but he's not a runner. He doesn't threaten the defense, anything like that. The other condition here is Shamar Stewart, their most talented wide receiver, arguably the number one rated wide receiver in the country coming out of high school. He was suspended for that game. They missed 3 guys in the secondary in that game. I don't know if you were up on that, where they had suspensions of all those guys were recruited top 100 players, and a few had already been contributing. And then they had 2 guys get hit with targeting in the secondary, including their leader, Damani Richardson. And so why Miami didn't take advantage of this, they were missing like 5 defensive backs by the second quarter of that game, and Miami still couldn't throw it against them. Yeah. So as we flip it to the Arkansas offense against the Texas A&M defense, I will say, even the App State loss, one of those TDs that they gave up was a kickoff return, wasn't on the defense. Yeah. They held App State down. It wasn't the defense's fault. They held Miami down to practically nothing. So that's going to be interesting with KJ Jefferson and Raheem Sanders and those guys going off on just about everybody this season. That's strength on strength.
Well, you look at their you take a look at Appalachian State, and you're right. It's definitely not all on A&M's defense. In fact, I think, and I said this before the year started, A&M has the capacity to be maybe one of the top 2, top 3 defenses in the SEC. They were good last year until they ran into a bunch of injuries. And look, you can say the same about Arkansas the last couple of years, really good on defense up until the halfway point when they start racking up injuries. Well, guess what? They're racking up injuries now. A&M's going to be getting guys back. I think they're getting back, a grand total of something like 4 starters, I think, this week. I could be you probably know that. You probably have that in front of you. I think Arkansas or A&M's going to return a minimum of something like 2 or 3 starters this week and 4 guys total, I think is what I read. But Appalachian State, going back to that game, they ran a lot, but they had over 180 yards on the ground. And A&M's given up at least 150 yards on the ground a couple of different times. Arkansas, I think, is the best rushing attack in the country. That to me is going to be a really interesting matchup. But, Missouri State was able to slow Arkansas's run game down for a period of time. Not for very long. Obviously, as the game went on, Rocket Sanders went off. But I think they're going to be playing. This will probably be the most physical front six, front seven-ish that they've played all year. I think that's a given. And it's the most talented defense that they've played all year. And it's going to be one of the most talented defenses they play all year, period. Between them, obviously, and Bama. LSU's obviously got a lot of talent. They're playing really good on the defensive side of the ball so far this year. But A&M, they'd have the pieces on defense to build off of what they did against Miami and to move forward. And they're getting guys back. That's going to be an interesting matchup. And then when push comes to shove, are they going to be able to throw the ball on these guys? I mean, they have shown so far this year when they've needed to throw the ball, KJ has been spot on. And in fact, I would say that's been his biggest improvement is, the sharpness on the ball in which in his delivery in the ball. It's so much, it's whether it's a contested throw or not, or a contested pass or not, whether he's got someone chasing him down or not, he's proven that he's just as effective in the box as he is out of it. Oh, and he can take off and run. Most of your audience very well aware of that. KJ is a capable runner. It's going to be a very intriguing matchup because this could be at the end of the day their toughest defensive matchup of the season. It won't be a deer in headlight situation for either side of the ball. I think last year there was some of that going on for A&M. Not saying that they took Arkansas lightly or that they were unaware of how good KJ and that offense was capable of being, but there was certainly something else entirely different about Arkansas from 2020 to 2021, and it looked like a deer in headlights moment for them because I think Arkansas had something like a 17-0 lead at one point over A&M in the first half last year. I don't think that happens this year. I think it's going to be a much, much closer game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. But it's going to be which weakness gives out first, Arkansas secondary, or I don't know that I want to say A&M's. It is their weakness is the run game. It is. I mean, when you look at just what teams have been able to accomplish against their run defense, giving up 150 yards in two different occasions, two different matchups. Arkansas is going to be the best rushing attack A&M has seen this year. But again, they're very well aware of who Arkansas is, and Arkansas has a big target on their back. Whereas last year the roles were reversed, right? A&M had the big target on the back of their heads. This year it's the other way around. So, interesting matchup. I'm excited for it. Part of me wishes I was going, but I elected to stay back for this one. But it's going to be a fascinating game. And by the way, Arkansas's run defense, they've yet to give up a 100-yard rusher. So Devion Kane and we know Max Johnson is a capable runner. They've got a couple other guys in the backfield that are capable runners. That'll also be an interesting contest because, I mean, even in their loss against Appalachian State, Kane ran the ball for 66 yards on just 10 different carries. So he averaged it was 6.5 yards a carry with a touchdown. He certainly wasn't a problem in that game, So it's almost like just two physical big semi trucks going at each other when you talk about their style of play and the way they like to play the game. A&M has been I think they want to run the ball, but I think this week they're going to struggle with that. They're going to have to throw the football. Max Johnson's going to have to throw the ball, and that's going to be the question for Arkansas. Can they respond in the secondary?
Yeah, their offense is definitely stuck in the mud, and there's different theories on why, because they've got plenty of talent. Just look at the recruiting rankings. They got plenty of talent. Well, again, they had their most talented wide receiver out last week.
Yeah.
They've had issues at quarterback. They went with the young guy, Haynes King, the inexperienced guy, the runner. Now they switched to Max Johnson, so there hasn't been continuity there. And I'm just telling you flat out, after watching the Miami game, their offensive line's having issues protecting the quarterback. And I think that's the biggest issue because Anais Smith and Devin Ashane, those guys are near elite players. They're really good. So they've got the pieces. They need to figure it out. And a lot of people would point to Jimbo Fisher being a little outdated with his offense too. So,
which is it's so crazy to think. I mean, I remember him at Florida State. Of course, he had Winston, and he had some dynamic players, as they always do at Florida State. I say always. I say that loosely these days, but It's crazy to think that he's somewhere at A&M, and they've had one really great year under his belt. But
yeah,
I don't know. To see them so bad on offense, and they weren't good on offense last year. To see them struggle the way that they have under Jimbo is a little bit surprising. I'm not saying I thought the guy was going to go there and win titles, but I definitely thought they're going to be better at this point in time with him as the head coach. I really thought they're going to be better, and they just haven't been for whatever reason. And like you said, guys missing, but they're getting some pieces back this week, so maybe that's the jump they need. I don't know. Maybe that's the spark they need, but they have not been good on offense. I watched them a little bit against Miami, was not impressed. I do think Miami has a pretty good defense, but my goodness, A&M just every moment that I've seen from them, it's just head scratching on offense. Like, what are they doing? Like, what is this? Like, what is this product that's on the field? Because it doesn't look like a polished offense. I think more than half the league in the SEC is better on offense than they are. Good for them. They've got a great defense, but and their run defense isn't terrible. I'm definitely not trying to make that argument either. But they have at times given up pretty big chunk plays on the ground, and that could be the thing that that separates Arkansas. And not only that, but you're right about them struggling on the offensive line despite not giving up a ton of sacks. But they're about to play the country's best so far in the season, the best defense at getting to the quarterback. Arkansas is something like top 2 in the conference in quarterback hurries, and they lead the country in sacks with 17 just through 3 games. So some of that, yeah, it's, you look at what happened last week and who they played and how they stacked up sacks. Sure. But you know what? They were able to rattle Spencer Rattler. They were in the backfield against him a lot and pressuring him a lot and sacking him. And then week 1 against Cincinnati, I mean, they were able to do the same thing. Cincinnati, not the exact same thing, but they're able to apply pressure. And that's one of the most experienced offensive lines in college football, an offensive line that went to the playoffs last year. And Arkansas was able to abuse them at times up front. So A&M's going to have their hands full in this matchup against Arkansas down in Arlington. They're both going to have their hands full, but I guess we'll see who breaks first.
Arkansas dominated early and hung on last year, and as Ty set us up with, it's practically a pick'em game in Dallas. Arkansas, Texas A&M.